just wrote a whole book that is going to come out in September. It is 300 pages. It's called How to Eat an Elephant One Voter at a Time. It is 300 pages about how you build a winning coalition. There's not a single paragraph that recommends cozying up to people like Hasan Piker.
I think it's really funny that a person who only 4 or 5 years ago decided to vote for Democrats, and even then it's like conditional, is now offering unsolicited advice to the Democratic Party about who to lean into. The environment is radically shifting towards my position. Like, this argument would have made a lot more sense in like 2012. Yeah, this was Tim Miller had like a take. I think that was pretty good, surprisingly. There was a longer one, I think, that that another outlet actually posted, because there's like a, where is it? There's like a, so the major discourse on the never Trump Republican side of the conversation is actually heating up still. As you guys know, for the last 2 weeks at this point, a lot of the right-wing forces and pro-Israel forces have been running around and smearing me, disparaging me, attacking me endlessly, relentlessly, calling me an anti-Semite and numerous other things. And it's because it's had very limited success. As a matter of fact, it hasn't had any success at all. All it has done is made people on that side of the equation more insane and more hysterical, while also simultaneously, I think it's boosted my profile a lot. It's also helped some of the campaigns that I'm associated with get more media coverage in general, something that they wanted to get. Tim Miller had long analysis on this, right? But these 5 minutes and 40 seconds are pretty good.
Other members ostensibly of the anti-Trump coalition have tried to turn him into a litmus test and say that people can't be seen with him. Candidates can't be seen with him. And like, I find that to be insane for a number of reasons. Number one, I think the timing on that is awful. Okay. All of our energy right now, if you're for liberal democracy, if you're against Trump, if you think what's going on in this country is bad right now, all of our energy should be laser focused on undermining this regime and bringing in more people who are potentially opponents of the regime and adding them to our numbers. In this moment, when we're in this war, when people are feeling economic pain, this needs to be the moment to say, come on in to everybody, particularly people that are ranging from skeptical to hostile of this war and of actions in the Middle East. This needs a moment for that. And Hasan talks to some of those people. So to pick this moment, a month into the war.
I mean, this is basically an admission, not of defeat necessarily, but an admission of like how much the discourse has changed. Tim Miller, for all of our disagreements, understands that the overwhelming majority of the American population is anti-Israel. Okay? He understands that there is no way to win those people back with a pro-Israel message. And he recognizes that I'm being used as like a beacon to tell everybody, 2024 style, that this kind of rhetoric is unacceptable. Okay? Matt Iglesias has also recognized this reality as well. Plenty of liberals who don't want Trump or a Trump-style candidate to win again have recognized that reality, and they're not behaving in this hysterical manner. However, there are a lot of people, I wouldn't say they're sizable. This is not a sizable force at all, but there's a lot of them on Twitter, and a lot of them with at least like some kind of influence within the ranks of the Democratic Party, in the consultant side, in the lobbying arm, that think that as long as they yell a lot, they yell at candidates, they can try to get candidates, they can scare candidates into disassociating with someone like myself, and also the base of support that I represent.
I don't get it. We did this already 5 years ago, where a bunch of liberals were like, you can't go on Joe Rogan. He had some bad opinions. I was just like, we can't do this shit again. Okay? You can't do this shit again. This is stupid. If you personally don't like Hasan Piker, that's fine. Me and Hasan disagree on a bunch of stuff. We're going to argue about a bunch of stuff.
A bunch of Sex Pestiny fans are on suicide watch after this video, I suspect. You know, pour one out for the Sex Pestiny community and its orbiters that Tim Miller of the Bulwark is now also an op for them, because these guys have they place the highest priority on undermining whatever the I'm doing, weirdly enough. Like, they have no real politics at all. Politics is just like a secondary patina that they slap on, a coat of paint that they slap on to their true resentment, right? It's very interesting to watch them operate. Sarah Longwell has boomer mentality. Tim is turning dark woke. Bro, check logs. I'm telling you, he read my comments.
Over the next coming years, the rest of our life, as long as we're streaming, we'll be arguing about various things, and that's fine. People can agree with me sometimes, him sometimes. Maybe some people agree with me all the time, him all the time. That's fine. But like, what is the utility of trying to shun him and his audience right now? If you're in the pro-democracy coalition, it's moronic.
Tim is being super pragmatic and he's getting roasted for it. I mean, I'll be honest. I actually don't mind the wave of attacks, even though like a lot of people have reached out. Even politicians have reached out to be like, yo, is everything good? You're getting yelled at quite a bit on the timeline. And I'm like, yeah, right. It's perfectly fine, as a matter of fact, because I'm used to it. I'm used to getting yelled at in this exact same way. And I've been receiving these attacks for the last 3 years, right? I've been receiving these attacks for even longer than that, but like certainly this specific line of attack on the issue of Israel for the last 3 years. And when I was tanking it in the immediate aftermath of October 7, it was a very different dynamic, right? It was a far worse situation. I knew the truth. I could stand on my principles. I could stand on my convictions. But it was a lot lonelier where I was at. Nowadays, given the environment has radically shifted in favor of the truth, in favor of justice, in favor of Palestinian emancipation, all this kind of yelling actually ends up galvanizing people on my side and bringing new people to check me out. But anyway, even though Tim Miller made this like very intelligent argument, the founder of Bulwark was still very upset.
Gail's going to be jealous. Sarah watched the whole thing, my whole long sermon. And so I just want to set this out. I just kind of want to break it down. There are a bunch of sub-elements to this, right? Like, which is, do I agree with Hasan Piker's politics? Like, I do not. And I went through some of those disagreements. Should people go on Hasan Piker's show? I think yes, we can talk about that. Should Democrats campaign with him? Like, there are differing views on that. Should there be a litmus test somewhere in the party? Like, where should the Democrats draw the line in their big tent? Like, should the tent encompass the entire country? Or, you know, should there be polls that if people fall outside those, they shouldn't fit inside the tent? So like, those are kind of, you know, I think sometimes the conversation, like all that stuff gets jumbled up into one thing. And, you know, my views are different on different sort of sub bullets. So I just kind of wanted to start there. You watched my whole thing. On which one of those elements do you feel like your disagreement is with me?
So I think I want to start with kind of Hasan Piker, the guy, the stuff he says, and like, who is he? Because to evaluate him is then to evaluate the rest of your questions, right?
Okay,
should he be?
Is this the lady that I did a panel with at the Getty Museum that I had to tune into from my desktop? And I was like towering over her behind them on the projector, where I brought up the fact that her outlet is run by neocon war criminals, albeit those who have had a change of heart. I'm just trying to establish like if this is a person who knows me and has carried resentment for that reason, or if it's just like a random person that out of nowhere joined in on the fuck Hasan fray.
in the tent or out of the tent is a question of like, okay, who is this guy? What does he believe? What does he talk about on what is a relatively popular streaming site? And I'll just give you a flavor of some of the things that pop up from Hasan's critics that I have seen and that I think are quite terrible. So America deserved 9/11, dude. On China, he says, we hyper-focus on the social repression or the civil liberties, or not even civil liberties necessarily, but free speech and things like that. But in terms of good governance, there's a lot we can learn from the way they perform out there. At least they get results. And he has a lot of very pro-China.
I love when they just like want to disparage my point of view, and they end up unironically presenting my highlight reel, you know, like the China commentary is like a perfect depiction of you're preaching to the converted. Okay. Like that's another situation where the environment is radically shifting towards my position. And it's not even like a super positive perspective on China either. It's one that actually acknowledges China's shortcomings and simply says there's a lot we can learn from every country, including China. Right? Like this argument would have made a lot more sense in like 2012, right?
It takes, there's one that he says was a little bit taken out of context, but he says, doesn't matter if the rapes happened on October 7th. That doesn't change the dynamic for me even this much. So that's the other part of this problem that many people can't contend with. Like the Palestinian resistance is not perfect. They're not like so good.
Why can you never admit when you're wrong? It's up to you to tell me what's wrong about the statement. The only thing you can do is just like demand that I apologize without even telling me what's wrong about the statement, right? Like, what's wrong about what I said about China? I'm acknowledging its shortcomings in terms of governance, domestic repression, well, and then simultaneously saying like we can learn a lot about we can learn about decent governance from China, responsive governance from China. What's wrong about that? Are you saying that it's impossible? We should not actually learn anything from our largest market competitor? There's just nothing to learn there at all. There's no lessons to learn from China that is currently destroying us in terms of manufacturing output. It's destroyed every other country with its record-breaking extreme poverty alleviation. 800 million people. Like, as far as this quote, she readily admits it is taken out of context and still continues to use it. Right? It's very stupid.
They have magical bullets. I don't know what that means. He says Hamas is 1,000 times better than Israel. On Hezbollah, he said, overall, what's my favorite flag? Hezbollah. Look it up. I'm not even kidding. It's actually a dope flag. It's got an AK on it and a hand holding it up. On Dan Crenshaw losing an eye in Afghanistan. What the is wrong with this dude? I also dislike Dan Crenshaw, but I would not say this. Didn't he go to war and like literally lose his eye because of some mujahideen, a brave soldier, fucked his eye hole with their dick? On Israel being full of inbreds, you are left with a country that is packed to the gills with the most inbred, uneducated, ultra-nationalist, rabid, Haredi population. On Russia's annexation of Crimea. Annexation of Crimea was absolutely a justifiable annexation. What do you call Crimea? I call it part of Russian territory, bitch. I call it Crimea River, a Russian river. The annexation of Crimea was absolutely a justifiable annexation. On black people care about the border. I don't give a what black people care about. Black people care about this. Black people care about that. Like, shut the up. That's not how politics work. And then I don't know if this is I don't know how to, I'm not going to rank these, but this one's a real.
It's literally someone from a right-wing perspective claiming black people are actually anti-immigration. And me turning around and saying, this is like ridiculous, you know, standpoint epistemology for like right-wing sentiment is totally ridiculous, and it's also untrue. It's so funny that like every single thing that she's brought up is like, I mean, I have a library of clippers that have clipped shit out of context for decades. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean?
Doozy, date rape is better if it happens to rich women. If you have these millionaire, billionaire wasp fails.
That's not true. She's lying. But again, no, I didn't even say that. Again, when did you say that? Never. There's a university, when reacting to a university that was celebrating removing Title IX restrictions, I said, listen, if they want to cordon themselves off from the rest of normal society and celebrate the fact that there is no, they're basically cordoning themselves off from the rest of normal society by actively choosing to go to a school that celebrates the fact that they will not actually prosecute date rape. Better that they're there than anybody else, anywhere else. Does that sound like me saying date rape is better if it happens to rich women or white women or whatever the she said? It's totally made up.
Sons, at least taking them out of other colleges so they can only do date rape to other billionaire, millionaire, failed daughters is in some respects, from a utilitarian perspective, of course, a little bit better. Okay, Piker told off a listener who condemned the massacre on October 7th, a bloodthirsty, violent pig dog suck my dick. Okay, so that's the guy. That's the guy. I do not think any Democrat should look to include him in their coalition. And here's the thing. You mentioned my book at the top. I just wrote a whole book that is going to come out in September. It is 300 pages. It's called How to Eat an Elephant One Voter at a Time. It is 300 pages about how you build a winning coalition. There's not a single paragraph that recommends cozying up to people like Hasan Piker. I talk a lot about big tents. I talk a lot about a pro-democracy coalition. But here's the thing. Hasan Piker doesn't actually belong in the pro-democracy coalition. He's an illiberal guy. He's a China-Russia sympathizer who hates women, hates Israel. Like, he's all the toxic things. And I think, and I was listening to you last night, and I was like, my biggest problem with it, because I agree with you in some places, my biggest problem with it is I felt like you were soft selling who this guy is. Like, at one point, I think you called it like impure thoughts or something.
Well, this is one of my defenses of Piker, which is also a defense of myself, is that if you're streaming 8 hours a day, like, I feel like the critics that sometimes like look at an 8-word snippet of something somebody says, I'm like, you talk for 8 hours a day. I just talked for 1 hour a day last night, and I rewatched that video and saw impure thoughts, and that's not what I was trying to say. I was trying to say that you just talk for a long time, and
but you don't you don't accidentally say America deserved 9/11.
No. He had some very bad takes in there too. He had he has some really bad ones for sure.
Can I push back on this idea though? They're not takes. Like, this guy has a worldview that I think is anathema to liberal democracy. It's not that we just disagree with his politics.
I think it's really funny that a person who only, like, as of 4 or 5 years ago decided to vote for Democrats, and even then it's like conditional, is now offering unsolicited advice to the Democratic Party about who to lean into that represents large chunks of their base. By basically rehashing the Washington Free Beacon's article, which is weird, from Chuck Ross, just a beautiful compilation of taking everything out of context. And if you can understand this for Israel, as many people have the capacity to understand, where if you're anti-Zionist, if you're anti-Israel, they'll say you're anti-Semitic. They'll find something to make that argument stick. The same goes for all of the other perspectives that they're mentioning, right? Even down to, and I'm glad I explained the lie that she told about me being like in support of date rape as long as it's like for rich women or some shit. It's ridiculous. Or even saying I'm anti-black. Okay? Like, the Washington Free Beacon and Fox News hosts running around being like he's anti-black, and then having that be channeled by a random lady who spent most of her life being a registered Republican is pretty funny, right? These are the opposite viewpoints that I represent. It's ridiculous. Say I'm anti-black because you clip me as I'm responding to a total lie that black people are very conservative and very racist towards immigrants, and trying to apply standpoint epistemology to that perspective to like to create this false narrative is not anti-blackness at all. So if you can understand how these guys operate in the exact same way for Israel, you can apply it to everything else. Because they are doing it for everything else. What matters most is your capacity to engage critically with what I'm saying. Listen to my words. It's free. You don't even have to subscribe to the Hasanabi broadcast, to the Piker Broadcasting Service. I don't run ads at all. I'm live and endlessly accessible for 8 hours a day minimum. You can make up your own mind. You're an adult. Like, between her and I, who do you think actually is more likely to be anti-racist, anti-white supremacy? Because when she was working with Republicans, I was advocating for Black Lives Matter. I was advocating for criminal justice reform. I was converting white supremacists away from having anti-Black thoughts quite successfully, as a matter of fact. Same with misogyny. Same with everything else that they brought up. It's totally ridiculous.
I think his worldview is gross, and the way he talks about people is disgusting. And so, like, I think he is all of the things that I think you were being too hard on sort of the third way types who are condemning him, because he is.
At the end of the day, the real problem that is being presented here is Israel. Okay? That's it. They don't like that there are loud, outspoken anti-Zionist voices that Democratic politicians are hearing from. And they want to desperately gatekeep who their politicians speak to and listen to. They're actively trying to turn someone like myself into a toxic person within the party. And what they fail to comprehend is I want Republicans to lose. Okay? So my advice to Democrats is not coming from a sinister place where I'm like, yeah, if I give advice to Democrats, then they'll end up losing to the Republicans. My advice to the Democrats is channeled through a shit ton of the base, right? The only thing that is correct about this assessment is that I am vulgar, okay? I'm a vulgar person. But that's just who I am. I'm a vulgar person, and I think that's still infinitely better than being a civil war criminal, right? Being a civil person that defends war crimes or defends war criminals is, in my opinion, far worse than being a vulgar person that is on the side of justice and on the side of truth. For many Democrats, they can't get over that hurdle. They fall prey, they fall victim to civility arguments all the time. I don't think you're supposed to be civil, especially with racists. You're not supposed to be civil with fascists. Who gives a f? And they're not civil either. So that's it.
Condemnable. And I think it is important. You and I spent a long time when I was on your podcast trying to take our longtime reflexive pro-Israel stances and kind of wrestle with that now in this new world. And I'm up for wrestling with that. And I do. One of the things that is scary about wrestling with that is that there's a bunch of people on the I'm against this war, I'm against Israel's involvement in this war, who do it for anti-Semitic reasons. And I think disaggregating from those people as you criticize this war is absolutely essential from a moral standpoint.
This is, I think, this I think is the crux of the deal, because as I said last night, I argued with Hasan about China on and off stage. Like, I argued with Hasan about his focus on Israel on stage. And I think that he is a liberal, and I think that if Hasan was running for Congress or president,
you think he is illiberal?
Illiberal, I do, and I think that if he was running for one of those things, I would oppose him. And I think that probably I think it's very unlikely that me and Hasan will have the same preferred candidates in the Democratic 2028 campaign. If we do, that candidate will end up being very adept at navigating our very fractures. So who the hell knows what the future holds? But like, I don't like it. I don't like his worldview, and I think that it is worth objecting to. And I think it's worth people like us objecting to and hashing it out and fighting with him about it and arguing about a lot of the things that he thinks that are bad. I also just think that, two things. One, people that consume him hear that list and are like, that doesn't mesh with the guy I know, right? And I think that if you came up with my 10 worst takes, they would not sound as bad as his list or anywhere near as bad, I don't think. But especially if you go back to 2004, I have some pretty bad takes going all the way back, okay? So I just mean, if you put my list together, I think a lot of Bulwark people would be like, guy, like, you're being unfair, right? And because I think that there are a lot of areas where he is genuine, that he cares about stuff, human rights. And again, I don't watch this on day to day, but I hearing this from other people, I think they would say, wait a minute, you're trying to turn him into like Tucker or somebody whose whole show is about anti-Semitism right now. But like he talks a lot about making sure people can get a living wage and human rights around the world and how we should care about rights for people.
So does Tucker.
Okay, fine. So anyway, I'm just telling you what people would say about him. I think that I do think that it is a category difference. A lot of people who are criticizing me about the stream last night were trying to lump it in with like, I thought you left Trump. And I was like, no, Trump had a lot of noxious views, and then he ran for president, tripling down on them and being like, hey, here are all my worst views. And like, I think that we should institute them as policy. Some of the things you laid out, I think Hasan would agree with. Some of those things, if you read the profiles of him, he's backed off on, particularly.
He says he does not apologize for any of them. He was just taken out of context. He's like, I don't take any of them back. I don't walk any of them back, but maybe they were taken out of context.
Okay, well, maybe I'd have to listen to that. I guess I just would say that holistically, it is a category difference for me that Trump, from what you hear from MAGA. All of that aside, though, because we can take the measure of the man, and you can decide that he's a wholly unacceptable man, and I can say that he's a man that has some bad views, and we can hash that out. The strategic question, the analytical question, right?
Yep.
Is how Democrats should handle somebody like that. Yep. And like, this is where I'm the harshest on the view that he should be kicked out. And I'm particularly harsh, and I said this last night, and this relates to your point about Israel, about like picking this fight with him right now. Like at this moment today, April 3rd of 2026. Because right now we are embroiled in a catastrophic war that the Secretary of State said we did because Israel got us into it. So like, you can call that a conspiracy theory or whatever, but like, the Secretary of State said it, and the president has basically said it, though he does word salad a bunch of times. And I just think that any fair analyst could look at it and say, well, obviously, like, this war is more in Israel's acute interest than ours. Like, that's just a statement of fact, right? So like, we're in this war with our partner Israel right now on the heels of their behavior in Gaza, however you want to describe that, whether it's genocide or ethnic cleansing or war crimes or just more killing than was necessary, like anywhere on that continuum. Like, this comes after that. Now we've partnered with them for a war in Iran that is going to create massive damage globally to people's lives. Like, people are going to be materially harmed by this war. They already are. And there are a lot of people out there in this country right now who are really mad about that. And they're about to get really madder in the coming months. And I think a lot of them look at they blame Trump, but they also look at the Democratic Party and be like, you guys have been on this too. Joe Biden was in there when Israel was doing the Gaza thing. The Democrats have been, part of this bipartisan establishment that got us into these stupid wars forever. And they look around for people, and who do they see out there saying, no, we should not do these wars. They're stupid. They're wrong. They see people like Hasan. And so in this moment where people are very bad, a lot of voters, that when you say how to eat an elephant one at a time, a lot of voters Democrats are going to need, whether they be young voters or men who don't want to go to war or people whose costs are going to go up. Like, right now, at this moment, a lot of them are assessing the landscape, and they're saying, like, Trump betrayed me. Like, I thought I was on board with the no wars candidate. Okay. And they're gettable right now. I get as ripe as they have ever been to be gotten by the Democratic Party. And in this moment, the Democratic Party and their leaders should be focused, in my view, on being as clear and loud and passionate as possible. No stupid wars. I will not get you involved in this. This is a mistake. To the extent that Israel is involved, the fact that our relationship is closely tied to them is a mistake. And if we ever get back in power, we will not betray you. We hear you. We see this. And instead, you hear a lot of Democratic leaders being like, well, we should kick this guy out. That's what he's known for. Like, if he's known for anything, it's being anti this stuff. And it's like, what? We're picking this fight with him now? I'm just like, I could think of 1,000 other things I would rather Democrats pick fights about now. Like, why him right now?
Because he's making their life harder. It is people like Hasan.
They're making their life harder.
Hold on. People like Hasan are making Democrats who want to take a stand against this war, right? And who want to probably take a stand against the way that Trump is just sort of like, doing whatever Bibi tells him. They're trying to figure out how to do it in a way where they don't imperil the safety of Jewish people in this country. They're trying to do it in a way that is, they don't want to be anti-Semitic. And
First of all, I think I'm the only person at my size that actually does do that, which is, provide a safe space for Jews and actively push back against anti-Semitism. Lady, you got to go outside. Okay? Most people do not give a okay? I'll be very honest. Most people think, holy shit, what Israel has done is unconscionable. And if you're lucky, they don't have that enmity transferred to Jews in general. But given the fact that for, the past 75 years and certainly accelerated in the last 3 years, every single defender of Israel has actively defended it as the Jewish state. There are a lot of people who learned the exact opposite attitude that you are demonstrating. And this even includes Democrats too. Okay? But perhaps the dumbest argument here is the idea that there are a lot of like anti-Zionist or anti-genocide voices out there, and they just can't subscribe to being anti-genocide because there's people like me. That's like saying I can't be anti-Zionist or anti-genocide because Nick Fuentes exists. I don't give a f*** that Nick Fuentes exists. I've been an anti-Zionist before he knew what the f*** Israel was. Who gives a shit? But yeah, it's doubly ridiculous that these guys unironically do this thing to someone like myself where they try to, instead of going after people who are just like avowed anti-Semites, Holocaust deniers and whatnot, they go after the one guy at this level, at this size, that does spend a decent amount of time actively combating against anti-Semitism while being an avowed anti-Zionist. That's what's so unbelievable about it. It blows my mind.
Tell you why Hasan is so dangerous is that what it does is it's exactly what Trump does. It's exactly what Nick Fuentes does and Tucker does. It takes maybe legitimate rage about something, and then it gives them an enemy to put it on. It gives them an out group to blame for it. And I think you have to be so careful with that so that you're not doing that, which starts with condemning the people who hold the same position as you for reasons that are bad, for reasons that are hostile to Jews.
Here's where I disagree. Totally disagree. It starts with condemning the war and condemning Israel and condemning Bibi and condemning Trump and being passionate and clear about it. Because then what happens? Then, if you have the credibility then with the voters who were anti-war voters, who were unhappy about the way that they see the bipartisan establishment, and they thought Trump was going to be their savior from this, that there was this some blob in D.C., and no matter which party is in charge, we all get into stupid wars. They thought Trump was their way out of this. And now they're like, Trump's doing the same shit that all the other ones did that we said we didn't want it. He's doing it worse. And so now if the Democrats go to those people and go on those shows, they should be on those shows. Democrats should be begging Joe Rogan or Theo, whoever, to have them on right now. They should be on Manosphere shows being like, I told you, this was stupid. I didn't want to do this. This war is dumb. Our relationship with Israel is too tight. We should be reevaluating it. We should not be getting dog walked into this war. By the way, MBS also sucks, right? Like, you can do that in a way that's not anti-Semitic because it's what has happened. Like, it's happened. And so if they did that and then in 5 months, they're like, you know what? Okay, look at this though. Like you guys, we cannot, be shoulder to shoulder with somebody as this view or that view, or we have to like, then you have the credibility.
Why is there a 5-month gap? Why can't it be in the same breath?
Because no one believes that you're anti-Israel. Everyone knows that you're not. Because on the basis of like what your gripe is, while you're simultaneously coming after perhaps one of the highest profile anti-Zionists in American media, of course, people are not going to trust you on being the gatekeeper of how to criticize Israel. They're going to trust me. You have no credibility. I've been doing this for 12 years. While you were working with neocons, I was yelling about neocons. And you still don't have that credibility because I don't even know what her like full perspective is, right? I don't know what her full perspective on Israel is. But if you're going to claim that Israel is like the Jewish state, if you're going to keep saying that, if you're going to tie Judaism to Israel, then you obviously are unaware of how unimaginably unpopular Israel is, for good reasons, for the record. That's number one. And number two, you are completely oblivious to what that conflation does, what that conflation teaches people. Okay, that conflation teaches people the trope of dual loyalty. Okay, it teaches people that all Jews give a shit about is Israel and defending Israel. That's all they care about, which is not even the truth. And it becomes increasingly harder for someone like myself to make that argument. All right, but I don't think she understands.
I think it should, because here's the point. I do agree with you that nature abhors a vacuum, right? Like part of what is happening is that there is a desperate anger over this war from a lot of people that feel betrayed by Donald Trump, that don't want any more foreign wars in the Middle East. And like we're almost, it's not about Israel. Like for some, there's
also, that's not even true. I'm sorry. Republicans are entirely on board. Like, what are we talking about? If your goal is to still create this like false notion that there's never Trump Republicans out there, you're so lost, right? At a certain point, you have to realize like the lane that you occupy is not a real vehicle for change. Okay? There is no never Trump Republican. Like it doesn't, as it stands, it doesn't exist. MAGA is Republicanism. Donald Trump is the Republican Party, and the base loves it. And the base doesn't just love it. The base is actually a cult at this point. Like they don't even like Trump because of what he does. They like Trump because Trump's doing it and they love Trump. You understand?
For some people, it is about Israel. For some people, it is about anti-Semitism. Those are different. And then there's just a lot. I think the vast majority of people are just mad we're doing this again. And so like Democrats should be condemning it. They should be outspoken. They should be the one to try to gain a following by talking about this. But I think in doing so, they should separate themselves from people like Hasan. I don't think you have to wrap your arms around him. I don't think,
he has credibility and they don't on this though. And
so they should go get credibility themselves. They don't need to borrow it from him.
I'm not telling you. I'm not saying they should borrow for it. I never said, again, here's the disagreement. I never said I think Democrats should campaign with him. I disagree with that. I
don't think they should go on his show.
I think you don't think they should go on his show?
Hasan's? No.
Oh my God, that we could not disagree more. Oh my God, the people that watch Hasan's show are not terrible. The regular people, a lot of people watch.
There's no reason for Tim Miller to concede that I'm a terrible person here. I get that like he's trying to make the best argument possible here, but like it is quite difficult that the established premise is just completely faulty from her end. I don't expect people to just like comb through every single clip out of context, but it is pretty crazy that like what they quote unquote have on me is already incredibly stupid. And it's so obviously cynical that like most people see that and they go, come on, man, here we go again. Another guy who hates Israel being called an anti-Semite and like a million different other smears, right? We've seen this happen over and over again. So it's like people have developed a tremendous tolerance, a tremendous resistance to this kind of like shit smearing operation. But the reality is like Tim Miller's also right on the tactical grounds as well.
Watch this video, watch the Hasan show. I hear from them. I saw them on the street. The idea, I know. This is like the same shit we just did with Joe Rogan. It's like Democrats shouldn't go on Joe. Joe Rogan has terrible views. They have to speak to those people.
Yeah, Joe Rogan has far worse views than me. It's not even comparable. MAGA broadcaster grows suspicious of the Jews. Joe Rogan, Theo Vaughn, and big league hosts who elevated Trump now playing footsie with anti-Semites.
Those are the people that they have to speak to. Why wouldn't they do that? Like right now, especially right now when they're the most gettable.
Let's say so Nick Fuentes is out there saying we should vote for Democrats because Trump is doing this for Israel. Think Democrats should go on Nick Fuentes' show? I don't.
Well, Nick Fuentes is full of shit is the thing. I mean, I don't think they should go on a show, but not really so much because he's an anti-Semite. I don't think they should go on a show because he's a troll. He's just a troll. Hasan really believes what he believes. You can say his beliefs are bad or wrong or shameful or should be condemned, and you could go on a show and fight him about it. But like, Hasan is not out there doing like, jokes about ovens. And, the Jew, there might not have been that many people killed in the Holocaust, doing trolling. What does Nick Fuentes even believe? Does anybody even know? Does he even know? I don't think he even knows what he believes anymore. Like, he's just full of shit. Like, it's like a variety show. Hasan, has passionate left-wing views. And they should be grappled with, I think.
Who says that 9/11 was America's fault? And that, I don't think this is a serious person. This is part of my problem. Now, and I'm going to both state a problem, and then I think one of the ways in which strategically this is bad. Nick Fuentes and Hasan Piker are both being elevated in the discourse because there's a Streisand effect happening. This I do write about in the book, the Streisand effect that makes these people more powerful, that gives these people a bigger platform, where whether it is the earnestness of Hasan or the nihilism of Fuentes, right? People are
people I always say you can disagree with Israeli policies, and then never tolerate any disagreements with any Israeli policies, calling every critique anti-Semitic. It's actually insane how bad faith they are. Yeah, it's my favorite because it's like whenever someone says, "Hey, listen, I'm perfectly fine with criticizing the state of Israel, and I always want to go, I want to stop you right there, okay? You don't get to define how I criticize a foreign nation state that's conducting a genocide. Okay? I get to say whatever the fuck I want. You can cry about it, but that's not how this works. That's not how anything works, right? Like, who died and made you the president of how to criticize Israel? And it's such a silly standard that we don't apply to any other circumstance. It's like, well, you're criticizing a genocidal apartheid state, but can you please factor my feelings and my endless need to defend said genocidal apartheid state into the equation? It's like, no, actually, no, I will not do that. What are we doing? What are we even doing here? How ridiculous. Anyway, let's continue.
Kind of there for that experience, and it raises their curiosity. This happened with Andrew Tate. There is just a series of people where
by the way, notice how every person that they compare me to are my perennial ops, people that I've spent a lifetime opposing and still continue to oppose. It's very strange that for some reason those people's ideology is actually far closer to this person, or at least for most of her life. And I have spent my entire life fighting against these people. And now she could just sit there and be like, well, I'm a Democrat now. And as a Democrat, Hasan is actually far closer to Andrew Tate and Nick Fuentes than someone like myself. Again, totally ridiculous, right? Totally ridiculous statement.
Outrage against them is making them more powerful. That being said, understanding that dynamic doesn't mean that there's just sort of a right is still right and wrong is still wrong. I do think Hasan, but I felt this way about Mamdani.
No, it's on my show. Does that just make you uncomfortable?
Oh my God, she's shitting on Mamdani. She's shitting on Zoran. I feel this way about Mamdani. To be that way,
the phrase globalized intifada.
Language is something that I haven't ventured into.
It's I just feel like the phrase globalized intifada is not something people should use because even if you don't intend it to be that way, it is heard by Jewish people as kill us everywhere.
See, this is what I mean. It's I'm sorry, okay, but the truth is the truth. It doesn't change anything. You have to argue on not how this phrase makes people feel, okay? Especially on this issue. It's so so weaponized against those who are making the just argument, and now the increasingly popular argument, right? Like I don't have to spare your feelings when I'm talking about something. If I'm saying something wrong, you can call it out, right? But you can't simply sit here and tell me, well, this makes me scared, okay? I don't listen to white supremacists and how they have genuine fears that if like a black person becomes the president, that they're going to live through segregation, right? That they might genuinely feel that way, okay? They might genuinely, legitimately feel that way, but that doesn't matter. That's their problem, right? Because it's a ridiculous criticism. And the same goes for people who are pro-Israel, okay? Same goes for Zionism, because Zionism is a racist ideology, okay? It's not identical to white supremacy, but it has a lot of qualities. And obviously there's, with every right-wing ideology, with every reactionary ideology, there's varying degrees of this, right? Not everyone is going to be a Klans member. Like there are relatives that you have that are otherwise very kind people that might demonstrate certain anti-black behaviors, right? Zionism is no different. Like there's varying degrees of white supremacy. There's varying degrees of Zionism. But ultimately, the underpinning of this ideology is very racist. The idea that, let's be real, Palestinians and Arabs, Muslims in general, are lesser. And it's not, this is not a far-fetched assessment either, because this is, Zionism in action is Israel, right? Zionism in action is Israel, a nation state that is built around ethno-religious supremacy. That ideology is always going to be exterminationist, and it has been exterminationist throughout Israel's history. Its inception was the Nakba, right? An ethnic cleansing operation, a planned ethnic cleansing operation of 750,000 indigenous Palestinians that were robbed of their homes, that were pushed away violently from their homelands, never to be able to return again. That was just the inception, right? So it's continued, it's expanded, it's gotten worse. Technology's advanced, and Israel's utilized that technology in its exterminationist goals, towards its exterminationist agenda, its surveillance policies. And it has operated in an apartheid state for the past 75 years. And the underpinning ideology of this is Zionism, right? So when someone comes in and says, listen, I'm a Zionist, I'm a liberal Zionist, and you're like hurting my feelings when you say Zionism is racism, I can explain to you exactly why I feel this way, exactly why I think this way, with facts, okay? Because the purest expression of Zionism is the nation state of Israel, right? There are vague definitions out there. People throw it around. They say, oh, well, you know, why can't Jews have a homeland? Like, whatever, right? Oh, you want Israel to not exist. You want every Jew to die. I don't. Okay? I don't want any Jew to die. It's ridiculous. But I am not going to sit there and try to spare your feelings, just as I'm not going to sit there and listen to someone who is defending Christian nationalism, for example. So the very same resistance that I have to the dangerous, toxic, repulsive ideology of Nick Fuentes is the exact same principled stance I have towards people who are Zionists, who are defenders of Israel. And it's the exact same. Christian nationalism is OP, get bent. Yeah, dude, one day, I promise, you're gonna restore the Christian fatherland. I promise. Stupid. So yeah, it's totally ridiculous to be like, oh, you can criticize Israel, but you have to spare my feelings when you're in the process of criticizing Israel. And it's like, my feelings revolve around how much I want to defend Israel. Okay, well, yeah, I don't think you get to set those boundaries, right? That's a you problem. And the same goes for people that were like fearful of Zoran. Let's be real. Zoran Mamdani is endlessly considerate, okay? And maybe even far too conciliatory to some of these racist opinions, right? That's the difference between me and Zoran, is I can be as vulgar as I want. He can't. He's the mayor, right? Even if we align on the principles, he has to communicate a certain way. I have a lot more freedoms in the way that I communicate, right? But when you turn around and say this exact same thing about Zoran, you're giving the game away, right? So many people in the last couple of months in the lead up to the mayoral election were talking crazy about Zoran. They were like, oh, well, I'm fearful. As a Jew, I'm fearful of Zoran Mamdani winning the election. He's going to harm me as a Jewish American, as a Jewish New Yorker, when he had never demonstrated even an iota of anti-Semitism. Neither have I, but at least there is like statements that I have out there that, like, if you're hysterical enough, you can actually associate with, the Palestinian resistance, like a defense of Palestinian resistance in general, a defense of Lebanese resistance in general against the state of Israel. Like, I can see why you would falsely conflate that with anti-Semitism. It's still hysterical, but at least there's a little bit more room for that. But Zoran didn't even do that. He never did. He was too fearful to do so, right? So at that point, it's very obvious. It's like yelling at Miss Rachel and calling Miss Rachel an anti-Semite. At that point, you're giving the game away. Like, it's your racism. And I don't think we have to literally abide by your Islamophobic standards. If you're running around like a headless chicken claiming that, every Muslim anti-Zionist is actually out to get you and they're all terrorists and they're all going to do anti-Semitic hate crimes to you, that's a you problem. Right? That's not a me problem. How am I supposed to live in this environment where you just automatically assume that I'm a danger to you? That's your problem. And it's no different than a white supremacist or a Christian nationalist claiming that, like, a black American elected is going to be an ever-present danger to their way of existence. Right? It's totally ridiculous and it's flat out racist. However, many people also have that shared Islamophobic perspective, so they don't even see it, okay? They don't see it. They don't understand it because they also are, like, a little bit worried. They also think every Muslim is secretly maybe going to be an ever-present threat to America. They might do 9/11 any moment, right? Like, there is that unfortunate normalized attitude. It's a very racist attitude. It's bigoted. It's ridiculous. It's hysterical. But unfortunately, it's the norm, right? And I know it's the norm because people, and I've talked about this before, with permissible bigotry, right? Like what the majority find to be permissible as far as like a demonstration of bigotry and what goes beyond it. For Islamophobia, you can basically call every Muslim a terrorist and you're not going to receive a lot of institutional pushback. There's not really anything you can say about Islam or Muslims that will cause large subsects of American society to turn around and go, oh, that's a bridge too far. There are certain things that you can't say about every other group, every other ethnic group, that people would absolutely refuse to overlook. Okay? For Islamophobia, there isn't. There's no ceiling. Everything is permitted, right? That's how you know it's totally normalized. So it's very frustrating to have to constantly act as though I need to be on the back foot, on the defensive about my worldview, when in fact the real reason why she's yelling at me and not the I've had it ladies, for example, who share the same exact sentiment and sometimes even engage in similar vulgarities to myself. The reason why they're not spending a good deal of time talking about the I've had it ladies is because they're not Muslim. It's that simple, right? You would look totally ridiculous if you were to do that about another popular leftist content creator, a podcast. If you were to demand that no one go on the I've Had It podcast, people would look at you and go, you're out of your mind. Or Emma Vigeland, for example, Majority Report. Sam Cedar is Jewish. Emma Vigeland is a white woman. You can't make that same argument about them. You can make it, however, about Zoran Mamdani. You can make that argument about Abdul El-Sayed. You can make that argument about myself. And that is because there is a lot of unexamined Islamophobia. I don't talk about it too much because, like I said, you just got to eat it, you know? But there are instances where I have to bring this up because it's totally allowed to be as like, you're totally allowed to be as racially charged against someone like myself when you're talking about these issues, and then also falsely claim that I am demonstrating that same like ethnic or religious bigotry myself. It's not the case. There's two people in this conversation, if I were talking to her, between her and I, and there's only one person that is actually demonstrating bigotry. It's not me. It's her. But that bigotry is seen as invisible bigotry because large subsects of American society also have that same exact resentment.
And so that should be condemned. And then I asked him if he would condemn anyone on the show.
But like, I think trying not to elevate these people in the discourse or us being clear that they are malign actors. Like we can wrestle with what they say. And actually I want to say something.
I'm glad that she's also, yelling about Zoran as well, because Zoran is a much more popular and much better known figure than myself now at this point. And he's a beloved figure in the Democratic Party. And he is actually exactly the type of person that we should be running, right? Everywhere. So for her to yell at me with clips out of context is one thing, but for her to turn around and then also say like, Zoran is just like Hasan, a malign figure, that gives the game away, right? You just lost endless amounts of credibility. I'm willing to bet even in the Bulwark audience, there are plenty of people who might have had some fears about Zoran. And then when those fears were never realized, they actually started liking him quite a bit.
Because I'm not sure if we've talked about this before. I was also on a panel with him and I didn't know who he was going into it. This is like actually the embarrassing part of this is that I don't like really know. I don't like follow who the Twitch streamers are. And I hadn't really heard of him. Or if I had, I hadn't bothered to figure out who he was. And when he started talking, like the first things out of his mouth were like ridiculous and they were attacks on Bill. And it was this like kind of, it was just like garbage lefty nonsense.
The garbage lefty nonsense, as I said, your outlet is run by neocon war criminals, even if they've had a change of heart. Yeah, Bill Kristol, who is a woke warrior now. That is true. I'm glad that the now woke warrior in the Democratic Party coalition is saying garbage lefty nonsense.
What was the fallout? Well, not the fallout. What was the kind of reaction to?
Oh. Why is she so angry? I mean, I think you know why.
And I also had a fight with him on the stage and condemned what he was saying. Also was like,
I get how polarizing Hasan Piker is, but Sarah calling Mamdani a malign actor shows how completely out of touch she is. Tim is right on this one. People in government have said 9/11 was our fault because none of the three-letter agencies were talking to each other. Doing the Gaza thing is a strange way to pronounce slaughtering innocent civilians in retaliation. Funny how Tim wears pearls, but his co-host clutches them. I've never seen a better visual representation of pearl clutching before. Someone called the dictionary people. So y'all are critiquing someone you don't watch. As an independent, I say vote out anyone that has Israel first and the Americans second. Tell me you haven't listened to a second of his streaming without telling me you haven't listened to a second of his streaming. We sure don't see Hakeem Jeffries or Chuck Schumer doing it. I hope they made this video to get a pulse on how the audience / Democrat base feel, and I hope they listen. Sarah lost credibility in their argument when she started by saying, I read some of what his critics say. Why do his critics filtering his statements get no second look? Tim is right about the talk 8 hours a day thing. When you generate that much content, it's incredibly easy to chop up whatever narrative you want. I found him a while ago, actually because of his critics, wanted to see for myself firsthand. Turns out much of his third way Schumer smear is chopped and cut from its context. He's pretty sarcastic and often mocks his critics by dramatizing what they say about him, which is bad faith critics clip, and then you just get it third hand and it reads horrible. He even has videos showing exactly how they do this to him. It's shocking how many of us just don't go to the source on controversial takes, myself included, and instead react and formulate a hard opinion based on borrowed criticism. But I get it. A lot is coming at us all the time. Flood the zone, remember? But going after Piker is exactly how, once again, corporate Democrats like Schumer and Jeffries risk snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. We can't survive this cycle again. Sarah, really means you have to be careful not scaring off the donors. I subscribe to the Bulwark, yet my politics mostly align with Pikers. Democrats who keep throwing people out of the tent will keep losing, and those people will get radicalized by the far right. This must stop. The ironic thing about Sarah's position on Hasan and the Democrats needing credibility on the issues is that it's literally the same exact critique Hasan has about the Democrats. He said that Democrats need to be clear on Israel's war crimes. Otherwise, terrible people like Tucker Carlson will look like the reasonable voice when he is a full-blown anti-Semite and white nationalist. I think she's grossly mistaken about what Hasan's politics actually are. I think she just doesn't care. That's it. I think because she's a little bit of a boomer, she thinks this is negligible. Like this is like beneath her station to even have to argue. People should just listen to her because she's a well-established, credible actor in this field. So of course she's not going to do like decent research because from her perspective, I'm just some random dumb. She doesn't realize that I have a bigger audience than she does, right? She doesn't realize that like my positions are actually far more representative of the broader base of the Democratic Party. She doesn't care about any of that. So from her perspective, it's just like, why am I talking about some shithead who's like choice quotes that I read from someone who is not even in the coalition, right? Most of the time, it's just like a reactionary framing anyway. Holy cow. The Bulwark platform's William Crystal, cheerleader for the killing, maiming, and displacement of hundreds of thousands of Iraqis, but Sarah is so revolted by the thought of having a conversation with Hasan Piker. Oh, where is my fainting couch? I don't think Sarah could have given her book a worse testimonial than her comments in this video. Read a book about influencing people from someone who doesn't understand the current moment at all. Her publishers must be enthused. Never has the Bulwark looked more like the Romney coalition. Throwing heat at Hasan is going to backfire. Sarah has no idea who Hasan is. She's utterly ridiculous. Now Zoran is a maligned actor? Holy shit, she is so uninformed. Does anyone understand the concept of blowback, or is that something that requires you to be younger than 40? Damn, there's not a single comment that's like, hell yeah, Sarah, you cooked on this. That's crazy. This is their platform. Sarah's strategy is just move right, keep moving right. Please, God, I just want a Republican Party that doesn't have Trump in it. Move right, move right, move right. So I'm not sure how useful the political advice coming from her would be. Oh my God. This is a member of 4 months saying, based on what I've seen, which is not everything, Sarah always says she's open to reevaluating America's relationship with Israel, but then she never actually does it. I think she's doing the centrist thing of closing her eyes and ears and hoping Israel goes back to what she thought it was. Nick Fuentes has never been for anti-corruption, working class, universal human rights. Hasan is smart, consistent, and 9/11 was a reaction to a shitty prior foreign policy. Fuentes and Piker cannot be compared. New Dem leadership now.
It's like, this guy's worthless.
Sarah was wrong about Kamala's campaign approach, wrong about Zoran, and now she's wrong about Hasan.
I don't find him to be remotely interesting as a thinker, and I get that he's got a big audience, but just because these guys have big audiences doesn't mean they're all created equal.
Again, I think this is why I know you the 5 months thing and right is always right. And I think that people in the commentary space that want to criticize him should, and I understand that right is always right. In my argument for engaging with him last night, I said it was like, even this week he attacked Scott Wiener, state senator out of California, for visiting Israel after October 7th, and I was like, that's a crazy thing to attack somebody over. That's an insane thing.
I don't think so. And I did privately defend that. I was like, I would do the same if someone went to apartheid South Africa. You know, I'd do the same if someone went to Nazi Germany. I would do the same if someone went to apartheid South Africa. I think it's totally warranted
to attack somebody over, and that's wrong, and I find it repugnant, actually. But we could disagree about that. Here's my problem, though, is why it matters all in the context of Israel. You're saying that,
especially because like Scott Wiener didn't just go to Israel; he went to Israel and hung out with the president. Okay, amidst a genocide, like it's not even like this is so far. Like that will be brought up in this upcoming race, right? I hope. If someone is smart, they will bring that up in this upcoming race. It probably won't be Connie Chan. It'll most likely be Shoykot, right? But like, he didn't just go to Israel. He hung out with the president, and he wrote this. It's edited now. I don't know what else he said, but Last week, I co-led a legislative delegation to Israel with both Jewish and non-Jewish legislators and several community organizations during this devastating time of war and violence. We went with a variety of leaders, including President Herzog, members of the Knesset from different parties, Palestinian journalists from East Jerusalem, families of Jewish and Arab Israelis held hostage by Hamas, Bedouin leaders in the Negev, who also have family in Gaza, women who work with and support survivors of sexual violence. We also bore witness by visiting Kfar Aza, one of the kibbutzim Hamas attacked. Hamas massacred and raped, kidnapped numerous residents there. We also visited the Nova Music Festival site. I was also able to pray and reflect on the Western Wall, one of the holiest sites in Judaism. Both Israelis and Palestinians are losing in this war, all this stuff. Yeah, Cam Kasky went to Israel. Well, he went to Palestine, but he went through Israel to go to Palestine. You don't see me complaining about that. You know what I mean? There's a reason why Scott Wiener has to like reposition himself as an Israel skeptic now, an Israel critic now. Okay? It's ridiculous. Yeah. This post will always haunt you. In your rambling, virtue signaling prose, you focus entirely on Hamas's horrific actions while never mentioning Israel's decades-long assault on the Palestinians. Right? Like, that's entirely different. Like, doing a propaganda mission to Israel amidst its genocide, amidst its continued apartheid is crazy. DSA is stupid for supporting her. DSA doesn't openly support Connie Chen. These are some of the reasons. DSA San Francisco does not openly support Connie Chen. There are many DSA San Francisco members who actually prefer Connie Chen to Shoykot. I hope I can, change their minds. But yeah, the question was defensive versus offensive weapons to Israel. Let's take a look. This is what Scott Wiener said. Shoykot says, Israel doesn't distinguish between money for offensive and defensive weapons, so neither should we.
I support Iron Dome, and I think there is to me, there's a clear distinction.
We should not be funding Israel's military at all, offensive or defensive weapons. We have a moral obligation to stop this genocide. The only way we do this is by breaking the Israel lobby's hold on our government.
Are you saying there should be no military aid to Israel?
There should be no offensive military weapons funding to Israeli government.
I support Iron Dome.
Yeah. So I do want to mention something important here too. Okay, something that's important here is Shoykot said this before AOC's statement too, and I think that matters. Okay, Shoykot made this statement before AOC publicly turned it into the new litmus test. I think this shows integrity. Pay close attention to the fake progressives who will now change their attitude once AOC made it permissible. In January, Wiener couldn't even commit to acknowledge that it was a genocide. Exactly. Do you think it's a bad sign for 2028 that AOC is not leading on this issue? Yes, I do. Connie Chan does not support U.S. with Israel, dude. Oh, really? So why is she having a hard time saying no defensive weapons? It's interesting. I mean, saying that in this community, maybe you can say that to the MSNBC audience. They'll believe it. This community, not so much. The reasons pro-Israel Democratic groups rather talk about Hasan Piker and not Trump, steeply unpopular war, obvious. One, Israel's a party to the war. Two, pro-Israel groups believe the only reason people have a negative view of Israel's anti-Semitism is anti-Semitism. They see it all as bigotry. Pro-Israel groups genuinely believe people only have a negative view of Israel because they're bigoted or under the spell of people who they consider bigots. They don't think any of it has to do with Israel's actions. Since it's all irrational bigotry, they embrace cancel culture. Yeah.
These guys are being elevated by the Streisand effect. And I think that is part of it. It is true. And I think that, again, and I think that's why this is counterproductive to have this fight right now for pro-Israel Democrats or centrist Democrats or whatever, any of those groups, because I think right now he's being elevated quite a bit. But I don't think that's what's elevating him. I mean, I think that what is happening in the world is elevating him in the moment. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. This is very uncomfortable for defenders of Israel to deal with. But what happened was we were in a world after October.
He's right. He's nailing it. He's basically trying to explain to this person that history has officially vindicated my position, a position that I have been consistent on for a decade plus, and that obviously gives me a lot of credibility with the newcomers in general. and I already have existing relationships with the people that are in this movement in general. So when you actually come after someone like myself on these issues to try to like set new boundaries on how we can and can't talk about this issue, most people are going to look at you and go, shut the fuck up. What is this phony bullshit? You know, it almost feels like if someone were to be a lifelong Republican and work within the Republican machine to then come into the Democratic Party and tell Nancy Pelosi what she can and can't do, right? It almost feels like that. Like Nancy Pelosi and others in the Democratic Party would be like, excuse me, that's Nancy Pelosi. She's the boss bitch, okay? You don't get to tell her what to do, you know?
October 7th, where there are a lot of people that were too soon for my taste out there attacking Israel for what they're doing in Gaza and how they're prosecuting the war, and they're doing so in ways that talked explicitly
clearly
about that.
Anti-Semitic.
Okay, well, there are times that they're clearly anti-Semitic, but there are also times where they were talking about things that other people weren't talking about in the news, like the amount of death and destruction that was happening to the Palestinians in Gaza. And they were talking about...
Yeah, like Tim is actually much smarter on this. Like as Mike from PA was saying, he was telling ladies, stop being dumb and hide your sensuous power level because doing this shit right now makes you look unhinged. Yeah. Yeah, no, he's aware. He's like, listen, your position on Israel aside, like you should never say that out loud. It's literally what Matt Iglesias was also trying to tell the Democrats that listened to him, where he was like, guys, we want neoliberalism. We're going to fail to achieve those goals if you keep talking about Israel this way. Just give up on Israel. It's over. It's done, right? Read the room.
That passionately, and maybe they're passionately and earnestly anti-Semitic, okay, but they were talking about this topic passionately, talking about how Israel is a malign influence on the world, and that they have too much, and that they have too much influence in American politics. We're giving them too much aid. That AIPAC is too involved in these campaigns. And if you came and listened to my show a year ago, like anytime this topic come up, I was on the opposite side. I was saying, you're it's kind of anti-Semitic how you're blaming AIPAC for everything. You're overstating AIPAC's influence. And all of their critiques of Israel has just done everything that they said. Like AIPAC now is the key player in Democratic primaries and internecine primaries. They are the group that is putting the most money in. That's not a Jewish conspiracy theory. That's just what's happening. I talked to them.
Yeah. For the record, that was always the case. Like AIPAC had tremendous influence. It's just, it's far more in your face now because a lot of people started having a negative opinion about Israel. So now all of a sudden, when AIPAC enters the fold, you're like way more aware of it. When you're like, wait a minute, that's crazy. What the
Democratic strategists? They're like, the race is going to be determined based on AIPAC's involvement. Like that's just is what it is right now. And Israel did then continue to go way overboard in their prosecution of the war in Gaza, and then not to mention what's happening in the West Bank with the settlements, not to mention the fact that they're invading Lebanon right now. And then we did get into a war with Israel. Like that the Secretary of State said we got into because Israel was going to attack first if we didn't do it. So like sure, there might have been some anti-Semitic.
Did he say a Jewish conspiracy theory? Yeah, he's saying like AIPAC having profound influence over Democratic primaries is not some like anti-Semitic Jewish conspiracy. It's just the truth. It's an accurate reflection of events. So you look silly when you try to say, "Oh no, this is some classic anti-Semitism." Most people who are knowledgeable enough, who understand exactly what's going on, will look at you and go, "You're insincere. You're a bad faith actor."
Anti-Semitic stuff mixed in there, and that's not good. I'm not okaying that. It's bad. They should not do anti-Semitic stuff. But like their general critique of the lefty anti-Israel commentators like has borne out in the real world. And so I don't understand. I don't know what pro-Israel people expect. There's been a huge sea change. If you just look at the polls of voters, they're looking around. They're like, I am unhappy with the extent of our relationship militarily with this country. I'm unhappy with this war. All of the establishment figures want to kind of tamp that down. And there are these other voices out there that have been speaking about it. Well, obviously they're going to gain influence. And shouldn't Democratic politicians talk to the viewers of those shows? They're not all anti-Semites. They're just unhappy with how things are going in the world.
I think you can do it. So
she's so mad. Why is she so mad? I don't understand. Like he's making these points in a way, like, I don't know what Tim's like true opinion is here, right? Like it's obvious that he is sympathetic you know, we've hung out before. We've done a panel before. Like, I think he likes me. He does a show with Cam, obviously, and that's probably another reason why he knows, you know, what I'm about from that reason, for that reason. But like, he's literally trying to soft serve this to her in a way where like using terminology and goals that she will understand, right? And she's so mad. Like, this is the nicest way that someone could have this conversation, like friend to friend, peer to peer, coworker to coworker. This is the nicest version of this conversation. And most people will not have a conversation so nice with this person, if that makes sense. Most people would have just been like, what the are you on about, right?
So this, what I don't like, and I don't want to say that I think you're falling into a trap, but I do think that there are ways. One of my biggest critique of Democrats in the book, and the thing I am urging them to do, is to get out there on offense, to say what they believe. They should passionately argue against this war, if that is what they believe. If it's not, that's different. But like, they should passionately argue about it so that people listen to them. And so they have credibility on this. That doesn't require Hasan Piker.
But
like,
who's doing
this
that?
idea that this... Well,
this is part of the problem. Is Hakeem Jeffries doing that? Is Chuck Schumer doing that? Are the 2028ers?
This is where you and I agree.
Newsom came out there and was like, "Oh, Israel's an apartheid state." Then he apologized
should ignore, but this is why
Who
they
is
should
the
ignore
avatar
Hasan
for this?
Piker. They should ignore Hasan Piker at all. They should ignore him. They should
fine with
ignore him and condemn him. I think I do not think it's hard. If you listen, when we were anti-Trump, right? The reason that we were anti-Trump is partly because
he's mad because the previously undisputed dominance of liberalism not cracking. You're part of the vanguard leading that. Yeah, I mean, I think for her it's a little bit different too, like, because there's different kinds of liberalism out there, right? And like, her version of liberalism is also like a very right-wing version of it too, because like most liberals, most self-identifying liberals don't have this opinion. This is a unique opinion. Most self-identifying liberals, as Tim is trying to point out to her, have completely dropped Israel. Like, they have a very, very antagonistic opinion of Israel. You know what I mean? So her anger, her resentment in this moment is actually stemming from the fact that, like, it's not just that liberalism is failing. It certainly is. But also, she's worried that she might not have space in the party. Okay? I think that's what it is. She's worried that a party that has me in the tent is going to not cater to her. It's going to cater to us. And she's worried that she is going to be left alone, right? She doesn't want to be a part of the Republican Party any longer because the Republicans are gross. They're disgusting. They say horrible things. They're stupid. We've seen this with like the Richard Hanania and all these other like former white supremacists who are still kind of, I mean, who are still white supremacists, but like are no longer Republican, right? They're no longer MAGA because they get like, they can't stand how unintelligent and how cultish, how crass the MAGA movement is, right? And that's part of the reason why they moved to the liberal side of things. That's the reason why they moved to the Democratic Party. And the Democratic Party is perfectly happy to cater to these people, right? And they have catered to these people in spite of the fact that there aren't that many of them, right? This is not a real constituency. And the Democrats have lost because they've catered to the never Trump Republicans. But that's the reason why I think she's like flailing around, because she realizes that she's going to be the one that has to concede to my worldview. She has to come to my side of things, right? But she's only used to a lifetime of Democrats catering to her expectations, or, you know, her being totally in line with the Republicans until Donald Trump became, you know, this rude force that she finds disgusting, you know?
Because he like loved to be in lockstep with all the grossest people who had gross opinions. It's like the very fine people on both sides. It's the way he checks in with Tucker. And the right would argue this. Why is J.D. Vance cozying up to them? Why do we condemn them? We condemn J.D. Vance for cozying up to bad people for electoral reasons. And that, I think, is...
Yeah, that's the problem. I'm not a bad person. As a matter of fact, if you were to poll, I think, many Democrats, and openly explain both of our worldviews and our background, 99% of them would probably say they identify with my worldview over yours. That's the problem. You think I'm a bad person, but most Democrats would rather have someone like myself represent their interests, and I do represent their interests, right? Versus someone like yourself.
Is the problem. That felt
I'm not
to me
saying
like your
people should
argument
cozy
yesterday.
up. This is where the folks that are attacking me, I think are wrong. I'm not arguing that they cozy up. It's fine to go on a show and argue, to disagree with them. What prompted all this was the idea that John Ossoff has to condemn Hasan Piker.
You know what's funny? I agree with your
because
point.
Hasan Piker complimented him. That's insane. You is what John Ossoff should say. John Ossoff should say, you know, I don't know what Hasan Piker's whole
He should say, I don't know who that is.
I don't know who that is. Here's what my opinion is. I'm against this war in Iran. Yeah. I'm against this war and I'm against this.
Oh my God. She's like, this is crazy. What the hell? Why is she so mad? What the hell have I done to her? We appeared on a panel one time and I made one statement about William Crystal being a neocon and being responsible for the situation that we found ourselves in. And she has never let that go, huh? Goddamn. This is a common thread with people who we jokingly refer to as engaging in Hasan derangement syndrome, right? Unfortunately, when someone decides they don't like me, they can't just have like a normal level of disgust, or not even disgust necessarily, but like a normal level of critique. They go far beyond. And I think for most people, maybe they also see that passion and think, okay, maybe this guy's bad. I trust this person. I trust this person's worldview. So I'm going to trust their take and I'm going to hate him just the same. But I think like this is not normal, right? Like this resentment is so unbelievable that I think most normal people from the outside would look at this and be like, I don't think this is I don't really know this Hasan guy, but kind of feels like maybe you're a little too mad.
Trump administration that's killing people in the streets. And that's what I care about. You want me to talk about some streamer? Eat shit. That's what I think John Ossoff should say.
And I was on your side. I was on your side on that point. It was the rest of it. It was last night. It was last night listening to it being that I do not think, though, for electoral reasons, they need to embrace Hasan. That is different.
Did I say embrace? I never said embrace. I said talk to his audience, talk to the people that listen to him and Joe Rogan and Theo and Sneeko, all of these anti-war people.
No, the question is, would you have Joe Rogan on a campaign stop? Would you advocate for any politician that has the opportunity to have Joe Rogan on a campaign stop? Would you say no to that? I think we both know the answer to that question, don't we? They would absolutely get on board with that. Not only is she totally on board with talking to Joe Rogan and is a lot more open-minded about literally talking to a guy who endorsed Donald Trump and played a formative role in Donald Trump winning, right? It just shows where her standards are. Okay? She likes Joe Rogan. She is more comfortable with Joe Rogan than someone like myself. Maybe it's part Islamophobia. Maybe it's part because I am antagonistic to her worldview as opposed to Joe Rogan, who is like at the end of the day still a capitalist, right? Like, and is right wing on many issues. That's what it is.
People that there's some anti-Semites there. I hear that.
But guess what? Do that
guess what? Anti-Semites voted for Barack Obama. Anti-Semites voted for George Bush. Gay haters.
But you don't have to court
homophobes.
You don't have to court them.
Well, no, but you have to have a message. Yeah, the voters. You have to have a message for the people that listen to the shows
because of the anti-Semitism. Like
you have to have a message for people that listen to the shows. It's like, oh, let's make sure that the people in McLean, Virginia, with that go to the parties in DC aren't mad. It's like, who cares what those people think? Talk to the real Americans that are flocking to these shows that are upset about what is happening in the world. Have a message for them. Talk to them. Go on those platforms to talk to them. And if the host says anti-Semitic stuff, say no. I don't believe that. I don't believe the Jews were behind Charlie Kirk's murder. I don't believe the Jews control the weather. I don't believe that the Jews, there's a lot of, okay, whatever. I don't believe that we deserve 9/11. You can say all that on those platforms, but also say to people that, you know what I'm mad about? I'm not mad about some streamer and something he said 3 years ago. Like what I'm mad about is this war that we're in right now. And I think that there are a lot of people out there that feel like the Democratic leaders are totally out of touch with their anger right now. And I think that this is just like this kind of fight just exacerbates that.
I agree with that particular point about it exacerbating it. And so I think that we should separate the idea of like Democrats should be going hard against this war. They do need to be more aggressive. They do need to speak to a wider audience. I do not think they need to do that with Hasan Piker and I think that they should be very clear to separate from the anti-Semites as they do it, because otherwise what you are doing is ginning up anti-Semitism. And I understand. And last night
here's the part of the problem. We're going to do this. I'm just going to say it. Don't support anti-Semitism. I think there's a lot of anti-Semitism out there. I think that a lot of the people who are pro-Israel and pro this war weaponize this though. And it's like, well, it's too anti-Semitic. If I would have said a month ago,
but I think Hasan is
Israel is weaponizing social media to try to brainwash people, you would have said that was anti-Semitic. A lot of big Israel defenders would have said that was anti-Semitic. Well, then Bibi went out and said that he wants to do that with TikTok. He sees TikTok as a weapon. Okay, if you would have said that Israel is going to drag America into a war that we have nothing to do with, based on their influence over our political leader.
I think it's really funny that she just keeps saying like, no, but I think he's anti-Semitic. I think he's anti-Semitic. It's pretty crazy. I'm not. I stand on this. At my level, at my size, I might be one of the only remaining commentators, again, at my size, right? I might be one of the only remaining commentators that actively talks about the dangers of anti-Semitism. I can't think of a single other anti-Israel commentator that does that. Like, seriously, a professional political commentator that is anti-Israel and still spends a great deal of time. Oh, no. I mean, I'm saying like at my size, right? I mean, I guess maybe Mehdi Hasan, right? Like, because think about it. Like at my size, I would say like it's Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, maybe not even Nick Fuentes, but let's say for the sake of argument, it's like Nick Fuentes. Like there are even people who aren't anti-Semitic, who are just simply anti-Israel that don't spend this amount of time, as Kyle likes to say, throat clear about how not anti-Semitic they are, right?
There's 2 months ago, people would have said that's an anti-Semitic thing to say. And now we're doing that. And so I'm with you. I'm not for anti-Semitism. That what happened in Michigan is a tragedy. People should be clear-eyed. But also this notion that like that there's a lot of folks out there that are trying to police the rhetoric around this because they don't want Israel to be criticized in the full view of their actions. And there's a lot of criticism of Israel that is made.
Tim's making a good point. So now she has to like withdraw and then go back to the previous points about like why she thinks I'm anti-Semitic. So here's where the smear campaign moves into quotes again.
It right now. And I just think that this, again, it goes back to who you empowering. I think that if you try to like do like if on one side Israel is starting a war in Iran and getting us into this quagmire and hurting people's lives, and then on the other side you have people that are saying things about Israel, and like you're out there and you're like, I don't like the way that you're talking, and that's the thing that you're very passionate about, and then you're not that passionate. You're like, well, I don't know. You know, we have to. Bibi's a partner. We've got to work with him. We'll see how. You know what I mean? Like, there's a disconnect with people. And I think, again, you're empowering the actual anti-Semites. I think you're empowering the actual anti-Semites by not being just clear-eyed about the real threat here.
How is this different? This is one of the sort of the main thing. And this is tough, but I'm going to put it out.
Funny how it seems so easy to defend you with logical points, where she seems like the illogical one. Yeah.
Out there. How is it different? Our objection to Trump when he showed up, like, and this is where when people were like, it's locker room talk, I was like, you locker room talk. No, it's not. Like the way they tried to downplay things.
Did she vote for Donald Trump in 2020? Because someone was saying she switched parties in like 2025 or something. I don't know if that's the case. That would be unbelievable.
It's like
also comparing me to Donald Trump is unbelievable, man. It's so crazy. Like I oppose everything he stands for. What are we doing? Is going against her personal bias against you? No, she never voted for Trump. Oh, so she's like a 2020 never Trumper? Ain't no way she switched parties. We're watching a Republican. Libs giving up. Yeah. That's the other side of it. Will Staken says, fascinating reaction from Bulwark Online paid YouTube subscribers to this debate over Hasan Piker. Most comments are defending Piker. There was also the co-founder of the org behind the No Kings protest from Indivisible. Leah Greenberg says, personally, I'm team Big Tent, but if we're going to start kicking people out of the party on brand/moral grounds, I would like to nominate 1, the foreign policy team behind the Gaza genocide, and 2, every Dem former elected staffer who takes a cushy job with an overtly evil company. Okay, so the No Kings protest is on our side. And not only that, but because this has been unbelievably unproductive for all these people, there are some who are at least smart enough to retreat. Yo, we can't tip you anymore. Yes, you can by subscribing for $6 or for free. Yeah, Trey Easton finally retreating says all Big Tent and Hasan Piker discourse needs to conclude by 5 p.m. on the East Coast. We've all been very annoying. No one's convinced anyone of anything, and the weather's too nice to keep this up. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Right? That's it. Can't you prepare a video with the context of everything she's lied about and demand him play for correction? You get a good opportunity to introduce your actual views. Oh, chatter. I've done that so many times throughout my career. And the very fact that you don't even know that those videos exist out there perhaps is the greatest demonstration that doing that doesn't work. Does that make sense? She says she vote for Ted Cruz over Mamdani.
We're putting this on TikTok. Ranked choice voting. Zoran, Cuomo, Tucker, and Ted Cruz.
Cuomo. Cruz. Zoran. Tucker.
That's crazy. Sarah Longwell from the top rope. This is another one of Destiny's dick riders, by the way. Interestingly enough, so many of the Destiny dick riders are they're aligning themselves with someone who voted for a Democrat for the first time last year or 2 years ago. I wonder who the spoilers are, is what I mean, right? Who are the spoilers here? Who are the spoilers here? People who spend a great deal of time defending Israel, people who spent the last 3 years defending Israel unconditionally, thinking that that was going to lead them to prosperity and an elevated platform, and only now have to sometimes cower in shame for their previous positions, who found themselves in long and complicated legal battles due to horrible things that they've done to people, specifically women, and their fan base, or the guy who was uncompromising in his positions for the last decade plus, who now happens to be the voice that represents the moral majority, the moral center of the party. Not the politicians, of course, but the party's base of support. It's very strange. At a certain point, these guys, the Sex Pestiny fans, at a certain point, you would expect them to just like get tired of being on the wrong side of every argument. Right? Very strange. It's got to be a fetish at this point. Like consistently being on the wrong side and being on what they previously assumed was the popular position on every issue. Like have some conviction, right? How sad. Anyway, yeah, it's insane that she would rather vote for Andrew Groper Cuomo rather than Zoran, and still has the gall to say that she thinks your locker room talk is disqualifying. At a certain point, you'd expect Noah San. We've been saying this for 6 years now. It'd be too humiliating for them. I don't think that's the case. I think in the last 7 years now, it's not even 6. It's been 7 years at this point. A lot of people have left that community. New people have cycled in, but a lot of people have been filtered out. Some of them have carried on their resentment for me, but no longer watch Sex Pestiny. And I would go so far as to say there's plenty of people who have actually found themselves here. They just don't say it because it's embarrassing. Because the numbers don't add up. It just doesn't make any sense. I will say, however, the ones that have, stayed behind have become some of the most loyal Fedayeen, right? The ones that have stayed behind albeit a tiny, minuscule number of people now, still have like outsized influence and definitely work tirelessly to present themselves as like this massive wave, and are very agnostic about who they align with, because they will align and link up with MAGA. They'll link up with Nazis. Because remember, Sex Destiny's second in command, Dan Stalkman, went and talked to Tom Cotton, right, to try to get me deplatformed. That backfired spectacularly on Sex Destiny. But he did do that, right? Because like these guys, they have only one goal, right? Which is to fucking eliminate me. Yep, my friend is like that. He was a huge Destiny fan. Now he's just embarrassed. I have friends who were casual Destiny viewers and have dropped them completely to watch you now. Yeah. I mean, he has a community of like serial doxers and harassers, and they can get very active, but the numbers have actually diminished over the years. So because of that reason, I think the impact has softened, but they still have the capacity to go and align with much larger communities and like behave in this parasitic way where they're like, if there's anyone out there that's a larger community than ours that's saying fuck Hasan, we're agnostic, we're only on the fuck Hasan position, we'll lean into it. So they'll go and align with the Bulwark one day, and they'll go and align with neo-Nazis the other day, right? 2 ex-Republicans debating whether Dems should embrace Hasan. There's a large contingent of ex-Republicans on cable news who are seen as representing the Democrats. Why are Dems okay with these people representing them, but hesitant to include the left? I think we know why. Yeah, they'll align with Asmongold when Asmongold shits on me. They don't care. They have one move. It's very sad. It's very strange. I'll admit that for the longest time I stayed away from content because I was associated with Destiny. I hated the way he spoke and how fucking aggressive and pissed off he always was. And I thought you were similar in that capacity. And I finally watched your content. I was like, oh, this guy's actually pretty chill, unlike Destiny whatsoever. Yeah, there's that element too, which is also very annoying, unfortunately. Why are all your ops dorks? I mean, they're not just dorks. Some of them are, rapist dorks. What is this? This will certainly do a number on their approval. Surely this will improve their approval. Republicans genuinely think you're cattle designed to suffer for their glory. Yeah. Isn't this guy that flipped parties, by the way? Am I crazy? I covered this yesterday, but is this the guy that fucking used to be a right-wing Democrat and then became a right-wing Republican? Fantastic stuff. There's a lesson to be learned there, but something to consider. Yes, he was supported by all the centrists, then flipped MAGA after they got elected. Nice. Hasan Reactions, one of the best ones in the React channel.